Michael Saylor does it again, raising another $500 million to buy more Bitcoin in MicroStrategy's corporate treasury. That makes $1.3 billion this month alone. With MicroStrategy stock soaring this year, are other companies looking to adopt this strategy? Plus, we take a look at all the 5 personas that you could be during a Bitcoin bull. Which one are you? As Bitcoin becomes mainstream, it's exposing lies and bringing truth to the light, like Craig Wright not being Satoshi Nakamoto. The Craig Wright saga is just a small scandal. What other big lies will Bitcoin uncover as time moves on? Welcome to the Bitcoin Daily Show. I'm Dante Cook, head of Swan Business. At Swan, we're on a mission to educate the world about Bitcoin, and we have one core philosophy as a company: do what's right for Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. And so with that, we choose to educate people and answer questions. We want to make ourselves available. So if you have a question about Bitcoin, please send me an email at daily@swanbitcoin.com, and I personally will respond to get you the help that you need. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Yesterday, I mentioned that Bitcoiners were bored with $73,000 Bitcoin. Seasoned Bitcoiners know that we haven't seen anything yet at 73K Bitcoin. Sort of like this lion looking at this zookeeper when it tries to feed him. We know that our eyes are set on much bigger prices. Let's take a look at some personas that you could be during a Bitcoin bull market. You're brand new to Bitcoin, you're looking at the price, and you think you've overpaid. That's persona number 1. Persona number 2, you're a Bitcoin trader, and when the price goes up 20, 30, 40, 50%, you sell because you think it can't continue to go up, and you trade the winner for the loser. Persona number 3, you've hodled through an entire cycle or two, and when Bitcoin makes all-time highs, you're less excited about the highs, but you're actually more frustrated that you didn't buy more sats when they were cheaper before. In Natalie Brunell's latest podcast with Larry Lepard, I think Larry describes the different feelings that you can have in each one of these personas very well.
The big takeaway, I think, from this interview is do not sell your Bitcoin. Even when it gets to 100K, don't sell because you won't be able to get as much back when it goes to 500K.
You'll never recover what you sold. And in turn, if we go to 200 and it dips back to 100, and you paid 200 for your last bunch, don't panic. Just sit there knowing that.
Crazy. I mean, this thing draws down several thousand in just a couple of minutes. Can you imagine a swing from like 500K down to 200?
It could, and look, if you look at it historically, I think the volatility is becoming less over time. There's some evidence of that. But having said that, I think everybody needs to be prepared to deal with the volatility, and everybody needs to think long term. And because long term, I'm quite confident that this is going to be a multi-million-dollar per coin asset. And so if you're buying it at 72 today, you're feeling, it feels like you're paying too much, but one of the great stories from Madeira, somebody told me they knew Max pretty well. I guess when Max was buying his first coins, he paid, this is Max Kaiser, he was paying 50 cents. And he felt like he'd overpaid because Trace Meyer, who's a true OG, was buying his at 30 cents. So, pretty much everybody who's in Bitcoin feels like they're too late and they're overpaying until about 5 or 10 years go by. And then you're thinking, and people are going to be saying, what do you mean? Hang on, you have one whole coin? What are you talking about? That's
or you bought Bitcoin under 100K? Wow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I lied. There's more than 3 personas that you can be during a Bitcoin market bull, because there's the ETF persona. And this persona says, no matter what Bitcoin's doing, we're just going to continue to buy and accumulate more Bitcoin. Yesterday, on another unstellar day, the Bitcoin ETFs had 683 million of inflows. Just the second highest total ever. Oh, and it looks like today's going to be another banger with IBIT, BlackRock's ETF, surpassing 1.5 billion in volume before noon. And that might be because there's more firms like Cetera Capital, $475 billion wealth manager, that are approving Bitcoin ETFs to be offered to their clients. There's going to be a tsunami of RIAs and other people who recommend wealth management products to these Bitcoin ETFs that we haven't even began to see yet. I lied. There's actually a 5th persona. That's the laser-eyed Saylor persona. The kind of persona that will buy another $500 million in convertible notes to add to the $800 million that we saw a little less than 2 weeks ago, making a $1.3 billion total of convertible notes that MicroStrategy has raised to buy more Bitcoin in their corporate treasury. Let me explain how this works one more time with my famous chicken scratch MicroStrategy flywheel design and drawing. When the enterprise value of MicroStrategy increases, they either raise more debt or they offer more of their common shares to raise money to buy Bitcoin. Then they hold that Bitcoin on their balance sheet and they dollar cost average at whatever price because, again, Michael says he'll buy the top forever, Laura. And then when the price of the Bitcoin that they hold on their corporate balance sheet goes up, the enterprise value of the company goes up, and then the stock follows it. And traders right now are getting caught off sides. They don't know what to make of this, as over 20% of MicroStrategy's stock is short sold right now. I'm looking at the charts for MicroStrategy and can't actually believe that a short squeeze hasn't already happened. If there's that much of the stock that's short right now, I can't imagine what happens next. And we're predicting this. MicroStrategy won't be the only company to do this. In fact, Coinbase just raised $1 billion convertible note in the same way that MicroStrategy did, but we don't quite know what they will do with that money that they've raised. Will they use it to buy more Bitcoin? Fun fact, Coinbase used to be a Bitcoin-only exchange. And you know the term Coinbase comes from the name that's used when miners receive a reward for solving for the next Bitcoin block. We've spoken in the past about Bitcoin eventually winning over governments, institutions, and companies. Maybe Coinbase will actually turn back and neglect their crypto ways, an entire industry of hyped up tokens and frauds that they've built, and come back to Bitcoin. Will they become a Bitcoin-only company again? I doubt it. The draw to monetize a token or fiat currency out of thin air is just too much to resist. Ask the US government. The human desire and temptation to become our own gods and create things out of thin air is actually as old as time itself. It will even eventually cause you to deceive yourself and millions of other people that you are someone or something that you are not. Like in the case of Craig Wright, who for the last 8 years has claimed that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. Well, it's sad that we needed a judge to make this ruling, but in the Copa versus Craig Wright case, a judge had this to say about Craig Wright. First, Dr. Wright is not the author of the Bitcoin white paper. Second, Dr. Wright is not the person who adopted or operated under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto from 2008 to 2011. Third, Dr. Wright is not the person who created the Bitcoin network. And fourth, Dr. Wright is not the person to create the initial versions of Bitcoin software. How did this come about? Copa, which is a coalition backed by Jack Dorsey, Coinbase, and other giants in the crypto industry, they filed a lawsuit against Craig Wright in 2011. This lawsuit was to prevent Craig Wright from taking legal action against developers and people in the Bitcoin ecosystem and allowing him to claim intellectual property over Bitcoin's proprietary open source technology that he didn't create. The judge's comments, along with other things in the ruling, basically state that Dr. Craig Wright does not have database rights to the Bitcoin blockchain. It's a win for developers, it's a win for the entire community, and again, it's another knock on the crypto scam industry where people try to prop themselves up or tokens up in light of Bitcoin. And as our friend Peter McCormick says, we are all Satoshi. Well, except Craig Wright, who is literally the only person who isn't, confirmed by law. Meanwhile, justice was served in one part of the world. And, the lies continue to happen in other parts of the world. As a judge just chooses to fine JP Morgan $348 million for forgetting to surveil billions of transactions across 30 trading venues globally. I wonder why people like Jamie Dimon and Elizabeth Warren continue to say that Bitcoin is only good for money laundering, fraud, terrorism, ransomware, nuclear attacks. Well, because saying that reduces the amount of attention that comes to their own companies and firms. All of the transactions on Bitcoin's blockchain, or time chain as Bitcoiners like to call it, are open and available for anyone to see. Every 10 minutes, all of the transactions that happen on the blockchain are produced and available for anyone to see on sites like mempool.space. All of this makes you question cases that have happened in the past, like cases against Julian Assange or Russ Albright or even Edward Snowden. Were all of these cases just to make them an example and to punish Bitcoin? As more and more time passes, Bitcoin is not only exposing the truth, but it's proving itself to be the best and greatest asset in the world. It is a perfectly engineered digital property and monetary asset. So in light of everything going on today, Bitcoin continues to make all-time highs, and 68% of the long-term supply of the network has not moved in over a year. And financial gurus like Dave Ramsey still continue to think that the $1.4 trillion asset class is just mist, smoke and mirrors, and relying on their financial advice from Warren Buffett.
Question comes from Jason in Connecticut, who's also not evolved. Can we start treating Bitcoin the same way you would treat single stocks? Crud, son. I understand you're not a fan. No kidding. Where'd you figure that out? But an asset with $1 trillion market cap is not a beanie baby. No, but it's still thin air. Ask people like Warren Buffett, who says if he doubled the amount he had put in Bitcoin, he would still have zero because that's the amount he's put in Bitcoin. I'm going with Warren on this one. Not saying you have to add it to your portfolio, but it's a good enough asset to invest 5%. No, it's not.
Okay, I don't know where the 5% comes from.
I don't know where the $1 trillion market cap comes from. Mist and smoke and mirrors, like the whole freaking concept.
Dave. Which just leads me to my last point. We're still early. Stay humble. Buy the dip. Stack sats. And with that, we're signing out for today. I'm Dante Cook with Swan.com. Happy stacking.